60 years, almost 60 years in researching, studying awakening and integration, going through your own awakening integration, helping thousands of people go through awakening integration, even teaching at JFK University. What is awakening in your definition after all this work you've done and after all the studying you've done? How do you see it?
Well, I love the question. Thank you. Because it's been my question since I was 13. And I have explored this question every which way I can, including, trying all kinds of different spiritual things, trying all kinds of personal development things, trying all kinds of relational development things, career development, emotional development, connection with my body kind of stuff. And to make a long story short, I think we need to discern between awakening as a process and the idea of enlightenment, perhaps, as a goal. Because most people who are into spiritual or personal development have heard the term enlightenment. And in my opinion, it has come to be a sort of a catch-all basket for all our aspirations for highest personal development, whatever the heck that is. And so, over the centuries, various teachers and gurus and, saints, whatever, have come around talking about high states of development, not always sounding exactly the same. I mean, there's a lot of ways in which they're using similar words, but if you listen closely, I don't think they were all talking about the same exact thing. I think they were talking about different kinds of stages, different personal experiences of different stages, and different philosophies get mixed in with these things such that it becomes very confusing to try to discern what enlightenment could be or what the awakening, what's common about the awakening process that would help people, all people in theory. Long story short, our great myths that enlightenment is some sudden realization of the infinite in a way that just sort of blows away the ego, and maybe even it blows away all thinking, and maybe it blows away all impurities, and it leaves us a sort of just pure being of light or some such idea. Sounds great. And it's not like people don't have experiences like that, but the experiences are always temporary. So it's kind of like enlightenment after the final rose. What's that about? What's the real world thing about what really happens there? And that's really what my lifelong investigation, which led to the development of the iConscious model and all the various things that have been associated with that. What we're basically saying with that is, yeah, we all have potentials in 5 domains of our lives: consciousness, uniqueness, mind, emotions, and body. And we're breaking it down that way so we can look very specifically at all these different layers, which is really important, because if we don't look at all these layers, let's say we just look at consciousness, then we have, all kinds of teachers around the world who have claimed and appear to have some kind of enormous consciousness realization. And then they end up in the Epstein files or something like that, or some other scandal of typical proportions that just seems to be happening daily. And what's that about? Well, what Dr. Griggs and I really found through our investigations is that these 5 layers are not always very integrated. In fact, they're usually not. So that somebody could have a highly advanced consciousness awakening and be not very advanced at all in some other domains. I mean, let's say not even very advanced in ethics or awareness of one's own patterns, things like that. So what is that goal that we're moving toward? What could that be about? Fundamentally, it's hard to understand that unless you actually follow the progression of stages and really get where it goes. But fundamentally, it's just divided into the 3 phases we use. Phase 1, duality. This is where from birth through right up to the point of having the recognition that we are not separate from anything, including the entire universe and everyone else. Just before that and back to birth, we are looking at the world in shades of duality. self separate from world, separate from others, people separate from other people, the world being comprised of hot and cold and good and bad and right and wrong and war and peace. And people are taking sides everywhere, trying to figure out what's the right side to be on, as if we're not already being all sides of it, which we are. We just haven't realized it yet. So that's phase one, duality. Nothing's wrong. I'm here to say nothing's wrong. It's not. When I was growing up, the idea of living in ignorance versus enlightenment was kind of a put down. But I think that's the wrong attitude completely. I think that this is absolutely natural that we grow in these predictable ways, in the same sort of way that, like, an oak tree starts with an acorn and starts sprouting. And, when it's in its initial sprout phase, nobody's going, geez, what kind of an oak tree are you? You're a lousy representation. I mean, no, nobody would think to do that. And nobody would think to look at children and think, what use are you? You're not even adults yet. So like that, there's nothing wrong with being unawake yet or unenlightened in whatever way that means. It just means we're growing, which is just natural for everybody. So really, our whole approach, my whole approach is about how do we remove the obstacles to growth? That's all. What are the needs at each stage so we can fulfill them so that then we can just grow? So, all right, phase one was duality. Phase two is unity, and we call it embodied unity, is the beginning of that phase, because there is no true unity if it's not embodied. If we're not fully welcoming the body, the feelings, who we are in this world uniquely, and our consciousness, then it's not really unity. It's really still in duality, still working to integrate these basic layers of our lives. But once we get to this place of stage 9, we have come to a point of fundamentally, basically recognizing that all of these parts of self are one self, and that self and others are one self. And that really changes the platform we're living on, because all our assumptions of separation before that were so deeply ingrained that then we have to take the rest of phase 2, after this realization of connectedness, to sort out, to re-examine all of our assumptions of separation, which our life was built on, and our actions and our reactions, all based on this fundamental assumption. And so by the end of phase 2, we have worked through that material to the point and healed our wounds to the point where they are no longer driving the bus of our lives. We are driving the bus in this moment, making our decisions based on what feels right, not based on the conditioned automaticity of our reaction complex that we have grown up with to defend ourselves. Again, nothing's wrong with any of that. It's just part of the process. Toward the end of phase 2, the universe continuously sends us a series of challenges that are based, which it's always doing anyway, but in this case, these challenges are specific. Are you ready to let go of unnecessary control of this thing, of that thing, of this thing? And after a while, you just end up like, okay, yes, totally let go. It doesn't mean that I am letting go of having my own agency. It just means I don't need to control this stuff. I can't anyway. So I'm letting go of the illusion of control, is really what's going on. And as we do that, we fall into non-dual awareness, which we call singular awareness. I like it better. Non-dual is longer. I like short descriptions that are accurate. Singular means it's just one thing. And the only way our experience can be just one thing is when the duality, the illusory duality of subject and object collapses and disappears. And the way that happens is that the sense of self disappears. So that all that's left is the world. It doesn't mean I'm not aware of this. It just means it's not a separate self. It's part of the world. It's obvious. I'm not just this. I'm this and the universe. That's the phase 3. So to me, that's one way of describing what enlightenment is.
I think it's good to separate awakening and enlightenment, that these are two different things and definitions. And also what comes to mind is that it feels like a lot of people feel like enlightenment and awakening is only for the special ones, only for the gurus who are meditating in the monastery. What do you have to say to that?
What if we're all special? Then we all deserve it. It's our birthright for all beings. Just like it's the birthright of an acorn to be an oak tree. It's not a big deal. It just means it's going to grow up and become its full designed self. It's going to achieve its full design. That's all. And, so in a way, we're just describing in almost technical terms, really, in very technical terms, the details of what it means to be fully grown when we look at, let's say, stage 14 on the iConscious model. It's not superhuman. It's just human. It's just ordinary human living in a mature space that has resulted from a lifetime of going through these various stages, working through the stuff, and settling into the truth of the fact that we are divinely human creatures and living that way. To put it in a simple term. One of the things that's kind of hard to get a hold of is really what is our human potential? And, the further I grow, the more I come to recognize that even stage 14 is just scratching the surface. We're going to blow way past that, especially now that we've made it clear how to get there and what it's about, what that part of the journey is about. In the same sort of ways that, before we had roads, it was hard, to make any progress toward the West in the United States or in America, right? But, as soon as we had railroads and roads, it was easy to get to these places. Okay, now what? What's the next? Okay, let's go to space. So there's going to be a lot more coming, for sure. I mean, one of the things that's coming down the pike that I can see very clearly is that we're already quantum processors. We are designed as quantum processors from the ground up. And we have quantum processing capacities in all of our domains that are way beyond what most people are aware is even possible. And when we're not talking about, some special yogic powers, we're talking about special ordinary powers that we humans have tons of, actually, which is why we're completely taken over the planet. We have incredible powers, and we're really just beginning to get going. So let me come back to this piece about enlightenment versus awakening. So I use the word awakening to refer to the process of growing to our full potential. So it's process-oriented word. It just means we are growing. And how much we're growing really depends on how much we are cooperating with our unique self and truth and path. The more we're cooperating with being who we uniquely are, the faster we're going to grow. The more we're meeting our needs, the faster we're going to grow. The less we're believing that there's something wrong with us, the faster we'll grow. The more we get ourselves aligned with not only our own inner truth, but also with nature. So, for instance, just the more time we spend in nature, the likelier we are to grow to our full potential. It's very hard to get there if you're just like always wearing sneakers and you're always living indoors and you're always insulated from the world, because that's not how we were designed. We need to be in nature. We need to feel our oneness with the universe. So anyway, that's kind of simple top level view of awakening as process. But any questions you want to ask me about those things?
How can we let go of this part of us that maybe feels unworthy or believes is unworthy?
Yeah, great question.